CIO News. I'm Akash Mistry, your host for the broadcast at CIO News. This is a recorded session which will be available on our website, cionews.co.in, and on our CIO News LinkedIn handle. This is an exclusive fireside chat powered by Avaya on transformation through customer experience. Businesses are built by experiences they provide, and every day, millions of those experiences are powered by Avaya. Avaya is shaping what's next for the future of work with innovation and partnership that delivers a game changing business. So let's dive in and let me introduce my guest for today, Sandeep Chanda, is CTO at Neudesic. Hello, Sandeep.
Hi Akash, how's everybody doing?
Great. So let me tell you more about Sandeep. He is leading the technology innovation initiative for all market outside of North America and working in collaboration with his stateside counterpart to help businesses transform in the digital age, something like using cloud, data, AI, and DevOps. Having spent more than 16 years in consulting and several years in digital transformation, Sandeep has had the opportunity to lead several large-scale global enterprises in their transformative modernization. And we also have Bhavesh, sales engineer leader at Avaya. Hi, Bhavesh.
Hi, good afternoon.
He is a dynamic and result-oriented professional with progressive leadership experience in enterprise telecom and IT industry. 20 plus years of working experience with various roles. Over to you, Bhavesh.
Thank you, Akash. Good afternoon, Mr. Sandeep. Thank you for joining us for this short session for CIO News. We hope to learn, the objective of this session is we hope to learn something about your organization, what it plans to do, especially with customer service, and in turn, let's hope you also learn something about Avaya. So what I'll do is there'll be some few around 4 to 5 questions I will start with. Before I start any questions, if you can first, Neudesic, we spent some time on the website, not done much work with them. If you can briefly tell about the company and about your role in the company to start with.
Yeah, Bhavesh, Neudesic is a IT consulting firm, and in the digital landscape, we are today a digital default company, primarily working on technologies that help our customers in their transformation journey. Essentially, the pillars being cloud, data, AI, and hyper automation. Um, the company started as a pure Microsoft shop. Been the founding members being the early members of Microsoft Consulting Services, and then they moved out back in 2001 when the .NET boom happened. Neudesic was set up as a company around Microsoft, and over the years we have been a partner, an NSI and a Microsoft Gold partner for close to 20 years now, been the Partner of the Year award, winning it for roughly about 16 years in the North American market. And very closely, I mean, Azure today is something we do a lot. Microsoft is still our largest partner, although, the other cloud platforms like AWS and Google is also something that we work extensively on. But that said, Azure is something that we primarily focus on today, right? So that's about Neudesic. What I primarily call it, we are in working in the solution gap. Essentially, there are disruptive cloud technologies and the market that needs them, and we are in the business of bridging that gap, bringing the technologies to the market and the customers that need them, help them adopt. We are early adopters of technologies. When they come up, we go through the life cycle, what we call it, crossing the chasm, and then help customers adopt those technologies. My role at Neudesic, I'm primarily responsible for three things. One is solutions and innovation. Like I said, we bridge the solution gap, essentially ideating concepts around these disruptive technologies and taking them to market. That's one of my key roles at Neudesic. Capability readiness, ensuring that all the team members that we have at Neudesic are staying true to the value proposition that we offer to our customers, so ensuring they are up to date with all the technologies. And then finally, I would say client success.
Okay. Thanks.
That's
I
pretty
think,
much about me. Yeah.
yeah. Good insights. So I understand. So I think it is an IT consulting. You take large projects, help customers move to Azure cloud primarily, maybe using Azure tools to migrate them to the cloud. Cloud being the principal pillar of digital transformation.
That's
Okay,
correct.
that's good. So most of your it's more like a B2B, right? If I understand.
Primarily B2B. Yeah, we do have our products, but even they are in the B2B segment, right? So
Understand. Okay. So since this is about customer experience theme, that is a theme which CIO News has set it up. So now I think I'll start asking a few questions. The first question, I think what I mainly ask most of the CXOs is, uh, for a long time, and maybe this is more relevant for a B2C context, but voice has been the principal channel of providing customer service. Now today, with the advent of digital, I mean, you have cloud, with you have the mobile apps. uh, how do you see, how do you provide customer service to your end customers? It could be B2B or anything, even if it is B2C. What is the use of digital channels in, mapping the customer journey? Not just picking up the phone, calling, maybe they are using the services, and then there is something they reach through some kind of a digital channel by an email or a web chat, or today WhatsApp and social media is also very, very popular. So how do you really provide customer experience with voice and digital channels? If a little bit elaborate on that.
yeah, I'll primarily first
Mm,
focus on digital channels because that's one area
mm,
we had been extensively working on. What we found, a lot of our customers, essentially, who are in the traditional landscape, right? Homegrown industries,
mm,
hasn't adopted to digital. A lot of them we figured is struggling to get their business, essentially not knowing, a key decision being between, whether they should exist as a digital twin or become a digital native for that matter,
mm,
right? So these are some of the challenges a lot of our customers are grappling with. And digital, it's not a single pane of glass. You have to look at the technology transformation, whether the teams that they have, they're ready to transform. There is a lot of change management involved. And then, the pieces of business transformation, right? The business itself needs to transform, ideate newer revenue channels that they can create through this digital landscape and stuff like that. So that's one area that we are, focusing on, especially
mm,
leveraging cloud-based platforms. I think what has also transformed over the years is from a technology standpoint, we are leveraging a lot of them in cloud itself. For example, things like, when you talk about voice, traditional technologies are also now evolving on cloud. So, platforms like Twilio, where we could do a lot of automation
okay.
with the help of cloud-defined platforms, Microsoft's communication platforms, all of that are being extensively leveraged in our landscape today.
Interesting, you mentioned Twilio as a CPaaS platform. I believe you are using that. And being a
Correct.
Microsoft shop, I'm sure you're using Microsoft Teams and all, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we are,
Yeah.
primarily into Microsoft Teams, but
Microsoft.
yes, for a lot of our customers, that's
Hmm.
one thing that as a technology we kind of leverage.
Okay, fine. I think that's a good point. Uh, the second question I wanted to ask was, I mean, everybody, whether it is B2B or B2C, everybody does measure customer experience or customer service, whether it is called a CSAT score or somebody calls it NPS. Are there any tools, mechanisms you use, to measure the customer service or the customer experience using, it could be multimode, or it could just be sending an email link, carrying out the survey. Some people, in B2C, what they do is after every call, they want to take a survey. Or sometimes, you want to randomly do 10% of the interactions. How do you really measure the customer experience?
Very interesting question, Bhavesh. I'll take a few
Yeah,
minutes to explain you how we have
sure.
pivoted. Of course, there are things like NPS, and we do
Mm,
NPS. I wouldn't deny that that's something that we don't use.
mm,
So we do leverage, but oftentimes, we figure that it becomes almost like a checklist. So we tend to figure what is that the customer values, right, the most. And what we realized is that oftentimes it's an afterthought. It's not a thought where the customers were initially very sure about, right? It's almost an afterthought, right? So when you build a product that helps them in the transformation landscape, gets them to a digital channel or makes them a digital enterprise, oftentimes the realization of the value proposition of that product is very late in the game. So what we have pivoted is, what we call is as a shift left strategy on the principles of observability. And what I mean by that is we tend to ask those questions early. We tend to bake those things in architecture itself, right? We tend to ask questions about value and, how are you going to measure value of an implementation, let's say, for example, or a
Mm,
journey that you're taking forth, right? So at that point, they became attributes of the systems that we are proposing, right? And we start to measure them as early as the implementation starts itself, right? And then it becomes empirical. We fine tune that experience as we move forward, right? And the reason I say we pivoted to this is we found this as way more valuable than NPS because it's just a survey, and people are just probably rambling some things on a survey.
yeah.
It's very difficult to analyze and stuff like that. So the shift left strategy, where we are deeply thinking about the value of a product or a solution, and then baking them early in the transformation life cycle, is, I think, extremely valuable. And that's something as an industry I think we all need to pivot and start figuring, how can we look at what the customer really wants from a value perspective, and how can we help them measure, right? So
Mm.
that's the idea.
So, I mean, there is no particular method you are saying. I mean, you assess the customer insights. Are there any tools you use, ready tools, or there are some in-house tools that you have developed? Is it a simple
So
something on CRM? Yeah, if you could a little bit elaborate on that.
of course, there are an array of tools. So yeah, CRM could be. So why I said this is because when you talk about tools, the tools are the landing zones essentially, right? They're
Mm,
platforms where you are collecting the data from, and there is a diverse set of tools that could be used based on the customer's choice. Sometimes we build ground up custom analytics platform that measures those, right, depending on the
okay.
requirement. We have our own offerings that we are bringing to the market, things like the concepts of control tower, SRE principles brought in, and how can you measure through those. So there are certain solutions that we are bringing to the market as well, but it really depends on a customer to customer. So, I mean, there are
Okay, got
wide
it.
array of tools that we are using in the landscape. So
Okay,
I
so
think
you do it depending on the customer.
correct.
Okay, I got it. So I think the third question I want to ask around is this. I think there is a lot of use, while cloud is one of the pillars, there's a lot of buzz around use of AI, machine learning, analytics. Any, and being a CTO, I'm sure, I mean, you're using some of them or all of them. Uh, is it reality today, or is it still a buzzword, especially in your solutions that you're providing to the customers? And if you could a little bit elaborate on that.
Yeah, no,
Mm,
well, AI
mm,
definition is very very contextual,
yeah.
but in terms of machine learning, we leverage quite a bit. Of course, in relevant terms, if you may call AI services, we do quite a bit. In fact,
Mm,
we're bringing newer ideas to the market. A lot of times, when you talk about analytics, the typical idea that people get is primarily descriptive or diagnostic. When I say descriptive diagnostic, it's about looking at a dashboard and then trying to figure after the fact what happened, right? And then helping the
mm,
decision. We also tend to focus a lot more on prescriptive and predictive, which essentially means that while a person is going through the journey of that experience, they are getting assisted through an AI system behind the scenes that is enabling that journey in some form or the other. So imagine websites. A lot of people see websites as static, and you know they don't interact primarily, and then you have probably analytics behind the website that's measuring the experience of a user that is using that particular website, which I think is reactive in some ways. However, there could be proactive means where AI is assisting the user, figuring out how the experience is going on, and then bringing in those capabilities at the time the user is going through that experience and enabling them. Things like rage click, or somebody is not able to get a resolution to the problem they're looking through the website, they are searching, they're not able to find something, right? How can AI assist in those areas, right? So
Okay.
typically we are trying to look at AI and how it can be meaningful in not just being in the descriptive and diagnostic side, but also in the predictive and prescriptive side, and providing real time or near real time support on in the experience journey itself.
I got it. So I think Sandeep, that's good point. In while this is primarily based in it's a US based company, I understand. So what is the presence in India in Bangalore? I believe you're present in Hyderabad, Bangalore, and all. So is it a R&D back office or is it sales? What is it?
Yeah, so we have both.
Mm,
Primary our primary market is US. 80% of our business happens in US, so
mm,
that's our primary market.
mm.
Um, Initially, India was set up as a COE, but we have our sales organization today, what we call it rest of the world, which is I am responsible for. So every business that happens outside of US, I'm responsible for that. And we have business in India, we have business in Australia. There are three offices today, but kind of we have opened up, so people are all across the board. We are hiring from everywhere, so
Okay.
not limited to these offices only anymore.
No, no, understand. So I think big Bangalore being the hub, a lot of IT consulting companies, you are one of the big players. I understand that. Okay. Uh, so I think one more thing. I think there are maybe two questions more. I think the last 2 years in the pandemic, a lot of IT companies have been, they have successfully enabled employees to work from home. And I personally have been part of, I've been advising a lot of customers over the last 2 years enabling employees to work from home, whether they are, it can be back office, R&D developers, salespeople, or most importantly, the contact center agents. And we have seen huge challenges, right from arranging computers, good broadband connectivity, providing the right collaboration tools. So how has been your journey with your team, especially in India? How did you manage? How did you help them? How do you help your employees to work from home?
Yeah, I get this question quite often, and
Yeah.
interestingly, Bhavesh, it wasn't at all a difficult journey for us. I'll tell you why. Because we were remote enabled from get go. So from the very beginning, because Neudesic is a consulting firm, we had no limitations of on people having to work out of their offices, right? So,
Mm,
we came in India, established our offices way back in 2006, and like from day one, people had their laptops, they could work from anywhere they wanted. Of course, office became a place where people would meet, we collaborate and have fun,
mm,
but everybody was remote enabled from get go. So, you know a it wasn't a big challenge for us. So the COVID pandemic didn't bring about major challenges for us, but of course we were still hiring from these three cities, right? Primarily Hyderabad, Bangalore, Kochi. So it was still concentrated. So from an IT organization perspective, it wasn't difficult to manage that. But now,
mm,
since we have opened up globally and we are hiring from everywhere, it still there is a little bit of challenge because people do end up in remote places and not in cities where you have challenges in terms of connectivity and things like that.
mm,
So one is we are facilitating to whatever possible, right, in the means of I think what most organizations are doing. And we are also one of the important things in that context I'd like to talk about is we have to ensure privacy and information security for our customers, because we oftentimes operate in regulated industries and stuff like that, right?
mm.
So from that perspective, there are things that we are bringing to the picture. Things like DLP platforms is something that we extensively use to ensure data prevention, data loss prevention, and information security and things like that, PII and all of that.
Mm.
And then in addition, there are newer concepts, the concepts I can tell you about. So many of our customers require ODCs, right? They need a lockdown, secure perimeter setup.
Yeah.
And that is sometimes not possible in offices. So
Mm,
in the given circumstances, right? Now people are working from anywhere. So in that context, we are trying to leverage things like SASE and SD-WAN. So we are trying to create a remote ODC sort of a concept where
Mm.
people have SD-WAN devices, or people, we ship a certain device and then they are on the SD-WAN, and then we create a SASE network where their network on which they are on could itself become part of a secure perimeter, and they can safely execute their day-to-day tasks. So these are some of the concepts we are ideating and working on.
Very interesting. So I think this is definitely what I said. It's a top of the mind customer question for at least most of the CXOs 1 year. I think today things are opening up. Looks like many countries have announced it is the end of pandemic also now. We have been hearing it in
With
news.
fingers
So
crossed, yes.
yeah, UK has done it. Maybe I don't know India. It'll still take some time. But what we have seen is, as you rightly touched upon security, and I just want to add one more question on that. We have seen this as a major challenge for customers serving sensitive industries like healthcare or
Right.
BFSI. And when employees are working from home, while you have a very secure network with the VDI and everything in place, but there has always been a question, I mean, if an employee is working from home or anywhere, what is the guarantee that data has not been captured in terms,
Yeah.
it's very easy for me to do control C, control V, or take a photograph with my mobile phone of customer sensitive information. See, because the HIPAA compliance and all, I mean, if information gets leaked for a US customer, the
Yeah.
penalty of millions of dollars. So are there something like that you have put in place to ensure that a person working from anywhere home, he's the only person operating his computer, not his spouse? I've heard about that. His friend sits on the computer, his spouse sits on the computer for some time, all those kind of things.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that we stretch the limits of security when it comes to that.
Mm.
But by no means it's foolproof all the time. There is no way I can declare with a certainty that it's 100% foolproof, right? I'd be
Yeah.
dishonest if I said that. But like I said, we stretch the limits. The SASE concept we are trying to work on is stretching the limits, right? Ensuring a foolproof network. Essentially, SD-WAN allows you to get on a client network and then it
Mm.
secures the pipe, uh, essentially secures the network you are on, right? Not just so, earlier concepts where you are on a, let's say, a thin client and you
Mm.
always do remote desktop, that kind of gives security. But SD-WAN, goes a step further, right? So we are
Yeah.
using there in combination of. Now, we are, of course, we trust the team, and there are a lot of certifications that we go through, NDAs in place, and all of that, right? So, kind of protecting the interest. But I would say, from an industry perspective, nobody is secure from that standpoint, and especially regulated industries, we are very careful about the processes that are put in place to ensure how the teams work, right? A lot of checks and balances put in place. So, process with engineering abilities, those are the ones that we are relying on today for ensuring that
Mm.
there is enough safety.
Got it. Thank you, Sandeep. I think that's all from my side. If there is anything else you would like to add, please do so. Otherwise, we can go back to Akash.
No, I'm good. Good
Yeah.
talking to you and catching up with everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Over to you, Akash. You may want to.
Bhavesh. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sandeep, Bhavesh, for your valuable time. And it was a great session. I hope our viewers will enjoy.
Thank you, Akash. Thank you, everyone.